The voice of the spell echoed in Sonny's ears.
Prepare for appraisal.
Sonny found himself in a space between dream and reality. It was an endless black void illuminated by a myriad of stars. Between those stars, countless strings of silver light were woven into a beautiful and inconceivably complex net, forming various nexuses and constellations. It was truly breathtaking. Somehow, Sonny understood that he was seeing the inner workings of the nightmare spell. He also couldn't help but think that it looked a lot like the celestial equivalent of a neural network. Did that mean the spell was alive? What did it want from him? How was it going to appraise him? And what would it mean if the spell was still unsatisfied? His questions were endless, and for decades, people had been speculating about the source and nature of the nightmare spell. The best answer they had come up with was that there was no way to know. The spell was neither alive nor dead, neither sentient nor mindless. It was more of a function than a creature. But Sonny was in no mood to ponder philosophical questions. He was eagerly awaiting his boon. That was the promise of surviving the first nightmare. Every awakened is granted something, and Sonny was long overdue to receive some help from life. The spell was still appraising his performance. However, the first reward seemed unrelated to the challenge Sonny had faced.
You have received a memory, Puppeteer's Shroud.
Sonny felt incredibly elated. Yes! Memories were useful items that dreamers could summon in times of need. This Puppeteer's Shroud apparently belonged to the Mountain King, and by slaying the beast, Sonny had taken ownership of the item. Sonny was almost ready to do a happy dance. The Mountain King was a high-ranking monster, an awakened tyrant by Sonny's estimation. Therefore, Sonny could conclude the creature's memory was also of awakened rank. Getting a strong tool like that was a stroke of incredible luck for Sonny. He'd now be well armed in any future nightmares. And he'd need any advantage he could get. The nightmare spell got increasingly difficult every time a dreamer was faced with a trial. Under the nightmare spell, memories, attributes, aspects, and even a dreamer's soul core were classified by 7 ranks of increasing power: dormant, awakened, ascendant, transcendent, supreme, sacred, and divine. The power gap between different ranks simply could not be overestimated. Similarly, nightmare creatures were classified by 7 ranks of increasing depravity: dormant, awakened, fallen, corrupted, great, cursed, and unholy. From the spell's point of view, Sonny was a dormant human. Having a memory of a higher rank than his soul core would be of great help once he enters the dream realm. Sonny wanted to take a look at the Puppeteer's Shroud, but there was no more time. The spell was done with its appraisal. Here in the void, its voice didn't sound subtle and familiar anymore. Rather, it seemed like the universe itself was speaking. Sonny held his breath, listening.
Appraisant, your trial is over. A nameless slave ascended the Black Mountain. Both heroes and monsters fell by his hand. Unbroken, he entered the ruined temple of a long-forgotten god and spilled his blood on the sacred altar. The gods were dead, and yet they listened.
Sonny blinked at this statement. From his perspective, he had been scrambling from one disaster to the next trying to survive, but to hear the nightmare spell's evaluation, he sounded badass. The voice continued.
You have defeated a dormant beast, Mountain King's larva. You have defeated 3 dormant humans. You have defeated an awakened human, Gregor of the 9.
Sonny blinked in confusion and thought, the 9? The 9 what? Was there more to Gregor than he had realized? The voice didn't grant Sonny time to dwell.
You have defeated an awakened tyrant, Mountain King. You have received the Shadow God's blessing. You have achieved the impossible. Final appraisal. Glorious. Your treachery truly knows no bounds.
That final part was not necessary as far as Sonny was concerned, but he was still pretty satisfied with the praise from the nightmare spell. He felt like his chances of evolving his aspect to an awakened or even an ascended one were pretty high. His overall power was still dependent on the rank of his soul core, which would remain dormant until much later, but the rank of the aspect itself would do wonders for his overall potential. The voice boomed.
Dreamer Sunless, receive your boon.
He was an aspirant no more. Sonny grinned. With a flourish, the voice announced,
You have been bestowed a true name, Lost from Light.
Sonny's jaw dropped. A true name. He had received a true name. Never in his wildest dreams did Sonny dream of becoming one of the chosen few to accomplish such a feat. And he'd accomplished it on his very first nightmare to boot. Not even all of the saints could boast of having one. He was an elite now, a bona fide cream of the crop. He was going to be rich. But the rewards kept coming.
Your aspect is ready to evolve. Evolve aspect?
A smile broke across Sonny's face. He couldn't believe the nightmare spell would even ask such a question. Of course he wanted to improve his aspect. Sonny crossed his fingers. Yes! There was a loud rumbling noise.
Dormant aspect temple slave is evolving. New aspect acquired. Aspect rank, divine.
Sonny fell over. Divine was the highest possible rank for an aspect. Whatever this new power was, it was one of the strongest in the game. The voice barreled along, not giving Sonny any time to process this huge revelation.
Aspect name, Shadow Slave.
Sonny was standing on his knees, stupefied. The shock was so great that for a second there he lost all control over his limbs and fell. Divine! It said divine, right? He raised a trembling hand and rubbed his eyes, making sure that he was awake, or rather conscious, since technically he was still sleeping in the underground vault of the police station. Overwhelmed by all this terminology, Sonny silently summoned the runes and found the lines describing his aspect. Aspect, Shadow Slave. Aspect rank, divine. Aspect description. You are a miraculous shadow left behind by a dead god. As a divine shadow, you possess plenty of strange and wondrous powers. However, your existence is empty and lonesome. You mourn the passing of your former master and long to find a new one. Sonny took a deep breath. Sounds a little melancholy, but at least I'll have some real power for once in my life. He continued reading. Innate ability, shadowbound. Ability description. Find a worthy master and let them know your true name. Once they recite it out loud, you will be bound to their will, unable to disobey any command. It is improper for a shadow, let alone a divine one, to walk around without a master. That was a lot to digest. First of all, Sonny felt his heart beating faster. He heard it right. All the suffering and horror he had experienced in the first nightmare paid off in the end. A divine aspect. He had received a divine aspect. Anything above awakened was rare and immensely valuable. People with ascended aspects were uncommon enough to be fought over by various factions. The factions themselves were built around singular powerhouses with transcendent or supreme aspects, and he had never, ever heard of anyone acquiring a divine one. Never. Anything with the divine prefix was so hard to find that it mostly lived in the realm of myths and legends. After all, the human race had not reached that high yet. It was only slightly more than a decade since humans managed to finally conquer the third nightmare and received the ability to evolve their cores to transcendent rank. As transcendents, or saints as they were called in the real world, powerful awakened ruled over the dream realm, but even they did not dare to face nightmare creatures of higher ranks. Everyone knew that theoretically you could have a memory, echo, or aspect of supreme, sacred, or divine rank, but to Sunny's knowledge, no one had ever earned one. Until now. Sunny grinned, driven half-mad by joy and arrogance. However, his jubilation was a little muddied. After all, there was that weird innate ability. Of course, he had no intention of becoming someone's magical slave with no free will of his own. To hell with that. All he had to do to avoid that fate was conceal his true name. No one except for him could see his status. That meant that Sunny just had to keep his mouth shut, and no one would know that he even had one. It meant giving up on all the benefits that someone who was bestowed a true name after the first nightmare was entitled to. But none of those benefits were worth his freedom. Besides, the honor of a true name was overshadowed by his divine aspect. The nightmare spoke again.
The first seal is broken, awakening dormant powers.
Sunny braced himself, eager to discover what his strange and wondrous powers would be.
Hey amazing viewers, it's Sunny here. Thanks for sticking with us. By the time of the release of this video, only 9% of our viewers have joined the party by subscribing, and 91% of you might miss out on our next mind-blowing video. So what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and join the exclusive club.